Last week, our gospel was about Jesus being transfigured, with Peter, James and John experiencing Jesus in the glorification of God. Today we have a very different version of Jesus. Some would refer to it as perhaps the angry Jesus, where Jesus is taking a stand and he doesn't allow for injustice and for corruption to occur. And then he asks, or Jesus then makes a comment, we hear at the end of this gospel, that Jesus knows what's within each person, and that the actions of each person gives a demonstration of who we are. I was watching the news yesterday and I saw a news story about an event that's been happening in Myanmar. Some of you might have been following it over the last few weeks, that the president and a number of the government officials have been taken into prison, and the military have taken control of the country. I'm going to play a little news story which I saw yesterday on the news, just in case you missed it, about an event that happened just a couple of days ago in Myanmar. So we're going to watch that now and then I'll talk a little bit more.
The United Nations Special Envoy for Myanmar has called on the UN Security Council to restore democracy after a violent military coup.
Police have again clashed with protesters, but it was stopped by a moment of breathtaking courage from a Catholic nun.
In Myitkyina, armed police are in pursuit. People are running for their lives. They fear a beating or worse. But during this battle, a moment of breathtaking courage. Someone is kneeling in the road. Sister Anne Rosa Nutong has stepped between police and protesters. A nun desperately pleading with officers not to shoot. The danger is real. Junta forces killed 18 people in Myanmar on Sunday. Look, there's a sister over there stopping them, a shocked reporter says. And being a 45-year-old nun doesn't guarantee protection. After the protests, Sister Anne Rosa tended to the injured. Among them a journalist cornered and beaten. Her actions have been called Myanmar's Tiananmen moment, an ordinary person doing the extraordinary against a terrifying military threat. And as the UN talks about how to help, Myanmar's finding its own heroes, those ready to step up for its people.
It's quite an incredible story. I hope you'll be able to follow her, what she said there. Sometimes we have this idea as Christians that we're just meant to be nice people and that Jesus was just a nice guy. Yes, we're meant to be nice, we're meant to be peaceful, but we're also meant to have a strong voice. And this example of this nun is a modern example, I think, of Jesus Christ, that we're called to stand up and to have a voice and to use our voice for justice in the world. And where there is injustice happening, we should have a voice. This is a hard story, but the story of Jesus Christ is a hard story as well. If we are truly being Christians, we need to be willing to do what this nun has done just a couple of days ago. That where there is corruption, where there is injustice, where people's rights are being taken away from them, and we have a voice or we can do something, we should do something. And this is what Jesus does when he goes to the temple in this gospel tonight. Jesus has a voice, and he doesn't just go in there and say, hey, please, can everybody just do everything correctly? No, he doesn't do that. He doesn't say, oh, I'm going to go report you to the police. He doesn't do that either. Jesus realizes that there is an entire corrupt organization that was going on at this time. What would have happened during the week of Passover is that about 1 million people, we know this from scholars at the time, 1 million Jewish people descended upon Jerusalem. And between about 25 to 30,000 animals would have been offered in sacrifice during that week. And Jewish people would come from all over the place, some hundreds of kilometers away, and they would bring their offering at the temple. They would often bring a cattle or sheep or a pigeon, as we're told. But there was organised crime and corruption that was happening in and around the temple. And if you weren't in the in crowd, then you were getting ripped off. And you were having your rights taken away from you, and you were being treated in a dreadful way. Innocent, beautiful farmers from some 50 kilometres, some a few hundred kilometres away, would bring the prized gift of their lamb with them. And they would carry some of these lambs many distances to bring them to Jerusalem to offer in sacrifice. They would arrive in Jerusalem, and the health inspectors outside the temple would say, your lamb's not good enough to be offered. And what would happen is that they would be told they had to go over to the official sellers over there and buy the lambs at exceptionally increased prices. But before they could buy the lambs over there, they had to go over there and change their Roman money into Jewish money, because the Roman money has a statement about it, about the emperor being the son of God. And this was considered blasphemous for the Jewish people. So you couldn't use Roman money in the temple. But you had to go over to the money changers, get your money changed into Jewish money with a very significant commission. Get that changed so you can then go over to there and buy your animals so they could then be offered in sacrifice, even though these people already had perfectly good animals to bring with them. And Jesus said, this isn't right. And this isn't right for a number of reasons. Corruption and organised crime, we have a voice and we should speak up for it. And that's part of being a Christian. Jesus also says that the temple is meant to be a place of worship. It's not meant to be a marketplace. It's a place of the worship of God for us to learn and reflect, and then to go out into the world and make the world a better place in the name of God. That's why we come to church, to worship God, to listen, not to serve ourselves, but to then go into the world and serve. This marketplace that Jesus, in essence, causes a riot today in this gospel, it was in what was known as the place of the prayer for the Gentiles. Within the Jewish temple, there were three main places of prayer. There was the place of sacrifice, the Holy of Holies, where the priests would go and offer the sacrifice. There was the place of prayer for the Jewish people, where the Jewish people would come in for their moments of quiet prayer. And then there was the place of the prayer for the Gentiles, the prayer for all people. It was a demonstration that the Jewish people were missionary. They needed to go out into the world. But it was in that place of the Gentiles that they made it into a shopping centre. It wasn't a place of prayer. It had become a place of corruption. And Jesus said, this isn't on. And Jesus got up and made quite a significant statement. As Christians today, we have a voice, and we should use our voice to speak up. Not with violence, not with hypocrisy, but to speak with the love of Jesus Christ. This nun, you can see even from the video, she is there in essence yelling to the protesters on one side to stop, and then turning around to the other side to tell the police to stop as well. She wanted to be a voice of the love of God. And she said, as she said in that little video, she was willing to die so that others could live. And this is what Jesus Christ does for us on Good Friday. He dies so that we can live. Practical Christianity today isn't just us being nice and sitting around and saying, oh, aren't we all good people? It's about going out into the world and living Jesus Christ today. And that takes courage. Pray that we will have courage, that we will be inspired by Jesus Christ and inspired by this incredible nun just a couple of days ago. What an incredible story. I was inspired by it. Hopefully you're inspired by it as well, to be a better Christian, not just for yourself. Let us be that voice of Jesus in our world. Let us go into the world, proclaim Christ boldly. If it's necessary, use your voice loudly so that people can hear about injustice and know that there is a path of goodness, a path of love, a path of freedom. That's what Jesus offers, and that's what he asks us to accept and then to share with others.